Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Chin Music, a baseball podcast. Well, typically it's a baseball podcast, and we'll talk about 29 teams that played baseball this weekend, and then whatever the New York Mets decided to play the last week. I'm not sure if you can call it baseball, but nevertheless, I'm sure if you're listening, you know about the outcomes of this past weekend's games, and the official playoff bracket has been set, and it will not include the the favorite team of my co-host, Mr. Andrew Menson. Then how do you feel that the New York Mets have missed the playoffs this year? Oh, and welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be back. So for those of you who didn't know, as you can tell by my worn out look and my slightly sunburnt face, that I was in Miami, Florida at Lone Depot Park this weekend to view games 161 and 162 of the Mets season as they attempted to make it to the postseason as they should have. And as we alluded to, they not only did not make the postseason, but they fell completely flat. They lost two of three to the lowly Marlins to make it 3 years in the 2000s, being 2007, 2008, and now 2025, that their season has ended thanks to the Miami Marlins. And all three of those years, the Miami Marlins were not good teams; they were terrible teams. Um, but as Gary Cohen now infamously said on the broadcast, it feels like beating the Mets is the Marlins World Series, and it certainly feels like they take some extra joy in making Mets fans' lives miserable. So the first segment of this show, I'm just going to talk a little bit about this team because after watching 162 games of whatever you want to call that, I feel like I'm entitled to 10 minutes of giving my thoughts on this team and what
Feel
they
free to go
did.
longer than 10.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk some playoff preview, but before that, I'm gonna give my obituary, if you want to call it, to this disgraceful baseball team. So the Mets for probably the first. I think we also talked about this in our previous episode. The Mets for probably the first 3 months of the season were arguably the best team in baseball. And what proceeded to follow that is some of the most heartless, worst baseball I've ever seen in my fandom. And there's a lot of fandom where the Mets have been terrible. They've been non-competitive. 2023 in particular stands out as a season that they were supposed to be really good, coming off that 100-win season and just fell on their fucking ass. Mind you, some of this, I know we try to be family friendly. This might not be family friendly. Um,
We
this
do.
team, this team is awful. And not awful in the sense that they have bad players, because as Carlos Mendoza thoroughly mentioned through every press conference after every stupid loss, is that this team has so much talent and the talent has to figure itself out. Well, 162 games later, this team is not in the playoffs in a playoff format that allows 40% of the league to make the playoffs. And somehow the Mets, with all this elite talent, don't make the playoffs. Funny enough, there was a guy sitting behind me yesterday at the game, and all he said while the Mets were getting shut out by the Marlins in a must-win game, getting shut out, all this guy had to say to me, he said, this team, they just got really good hitters. They're gonna hit. Don't worry about it. They're gonna hit. And I turned back and I looked at him because it's the exact same shit I hear from Carlos Mendoza after every game. And I said, if you watch Moneyball, you know the quote: "If they're good hitters, why don't they hit?" I don't understand. They don't hit when it matters. They didn't hit in 2022 when they lost to the Padres. They didn't hit in 2022 when they lost to the Braves and got swept. They needed to win one game in Truist Park to essentially wrap the division up, and they couldn't hit for shit. And they couldn't hit this series. They scored, I believe it was seven. I don't even 7 runs, I think, is what I heard yesterday. I'll confirm that. In 3 games against the Miami Marlins. Yes. Let's look at this beautiful series. So they scored a grand total of 7 runs in 3 games against a bottom feeder, and it's been like this all season. They've been punting games, and I'll talk on Mendoza later. Um, but they continuously have just done this. Well, we're gonna be fine. It's a thing that Aaron Boone did for 2 months, where he said it's all right in front of us, as they would drop three to the Blue Jays and they did all this other stuff. That's all the Mets did, is that they would say, we don't worry about it. Don't worry that we just got swept by the Phillies. Don't worry about that we just got swept by this random ass team. And even I can see the going from being top of the league to top of the division to being top of the wild card to now not even being a playoff team. I don't get it. I do get it, actually. I'm sorry. I understand why this team didn't make the playoffs. I don't understand the lack of urgency for 3 months. I don't it's not at least in 07 and 08, it was a collapse for 1 month. This isn't a collapse of 1 month. From the middle of June to the end of September, they were a terrible baseball team. They blew games left and right. The pitching has been there. Did you know that Edwin Diaz has thrown more innings than all but two of Mets starting pitchers, that being David Peterson and Clay Holmes? He's thrown more innings than any pitcher on the Mets staff besides two, including all these rotation arms that we signed in the offseason that were supposed to, the pitching lab was supposed to fix them, and the pitching lab fixed them until June. And then Griffin Canning gets hurt. Tyler McGill gets hurt. Kodai Senga, because Pete Alonso doesn't know how to throw a baseball, he gets hurt. Everyone gets hurt, and all of a sudden nobody knows how to pitch. And Clay Holmes, because of course when your closer is your number 2 starter going into July, he's not going to hold up. Like he had a fine season. He had a rough stretch, fine season. And you saw that in game 161 when he pitched 6 innings of one-hit ball, his best start of the year in the time that the Mets needed the most. And this team repays him by falling flat on their face time and time again. It was a poor deadline. None of the deadline moves worked. Helsley was a disaster for 90% of his time here. Tyler Rogers was okay, but I feel like he continuously gave runs up. Ryan Stanek, who was the only player I for the most part of the game on game 162, I was pretty much just depressed and I didn't say anything. When Ryan Stanek came off the mound, I booed him as loudly as I have booed anyone in the history of my life, because and you see why he gets the nickname Fat Thor, because he is a piece of shit and he sold this team time and time again. If you look at all the comebacks that the Mets have had against them, you'll see losing pitcher Ryan Stanek on every one of them. And I don't know why Mendy is putting him in a high leverage situation. I don't know why he took Manaea out at the beginning either, because he clearly didn't know what he was doing with the pitching, with what he planned to do with the pitching that day yesterday. But all in all, it's a terrible team. They did not deserve to make the playoffs anyway. Even if they had won that game, they still would have gotten it handed to them, because I believe that would have been their 83rd win, 84 wins. That's not a playoff team. That's a crap team. So, yeah, I can go on and on. Mendoza, I want him back. He's going to be coming back, is what David Stern says. That's fine. I think I still have faith in him to be the guy at the helm. I think he was dealt a bad hand. He did not have a lot to work with, admittedly, in terms of pitching. But whatever the fuck he was thinking on Sunday, I couldn't tell you, because some 10-year-old playing MLB The Show, my little brother who's 16, who's played JV baseball. He hasn't even played JV baseball yet. He's played freshman baseball, and he could probably manage a bullpen better than Carlos Mendoza did, because that was atrocious. I don't know why you have a starting pitcher. Why you would even bother signing starting pitchers if your plan for them for game 162 is to go. I don't even think he made it to the 3rd inning. I'm pretty sure he got taken out in the middle of the 2nd, if I remember right. It was awful. David Stearns not blameless either. He had his press conference today. He talked a lot. He did own up a lot, which is the least you could do after being a $300+ million payroll and not being able to make the playoffs. That's the least you could do, is say, I messed up. Because you did. And it was obvious. And everyone knows you messed up. But at least you have the shame to say, yeah, I messed up. Good. He said they were gonna their run prevention wasn't up to standard. No shit. He didn't really talk about the offense that much, which is surprising considering that this team can never get hits. I never want to see Jeff McNeil in a Mets uniform ever again. He looked lost all series. I'm happy to let him go. Pete Alonso might not even be a Met. He's definitely not a guy that Stern's track record would indicate that he's going to bring back. He better come back, because I don't know how you're going to take that offense that was lifeless against the Miami Marlins and you're going to take away the only player that actually hit because he had a home run and a double in the game 161. He carried all the runs that were scored in game 161 because of Pete Alonso. And then in game 162, he had the loudest out that anyone has ever seen, the 116-mile-an-hour liner that, of course, because it's the Mets, found the glove when the bases were loaded, and we absolutely needed those runs. But the point is, Pete is the only one that bothered to show up that day, and they're probably going to let him go because they're going to think they're going to try to get savvy again and cut the crap and try to bargain shop when you have a bajillion-dollar payroll anyway. Keep him. I don't, and he wants to be a Met, so keep him. That's most of what I had to say. I will leave with this. It is very, very hard for me to sit here and tell myself that the Mets are going to be contenders next year. And that is depressing considering that we had just reached an NLCS, went out, signed a top 5 hitter in the sport, and the next year they're awful. And I wish I could say that I know that everything's going to be okay, and I'm wearing a fucking New York shirt, and I'm sure when spring training rolls around, I will be on this show telling you why they're going to win 90 games and they're going to make it to the World Series. But right now, this is one of the lowest points I have felt as a Mets fan in my 21 years on this planet, and that says a fucking lot. So with that, I turn it to you.
I'm trying not to revel too much in your pain because, you know, karma's a bitch sometimes. Um, I when a team misses by one game, especially when the season ended in a tie, and so they missed it by a tiebreaker. It's so interesting to go back and look at all of the the tiny snapshots in the season. You know, if Brandon Nimmo had gotten that hit in the eighth inning on May 14th against whatever team, and they had won that game, they'd be in the playoffs. It's so that when situations like this happen, it's as someone who's not a fan of the team, it's entertaining to look at all that stuff. As someone who is a fan of the team, and this happened to the Phillies in 2021. Was it 2021? I think it was 2021. Maybe it was no, but I think it might have been 2020 during the COVID year. They had to win. They had to win like 1 or 2 games out of their final 7, and they just lost them all. And so you can go back and look at so many instances from every single game that was lost. You know, 1-run games, 2-run games. Some pitcher lets up. You know, Edwin Diaz blows a save. Helsley blows a save. Like just so many of those one little events where are really annoying at the time, but very much could have changed the course of the Mets season. I think it also has to be frustrating too. And the Reds lost, so it's not. It's so the Mets, you know, theoretically did not have control of their own destiny, but you know they got the help they needed yesterday too. The Brewers won, so it was all up to the Mets.
It's funny because I spent so much time that morning. I was so hyped for the game, and I was hyped to root for the Brewers because I genuinely thought, like an idiot, that the main problem was not that the Mets would beat the Marlins, but that the Brewers, who had nothing to play for, would mail it in and lose to the Reds. So I was pushing out Brewers stuff. I changed my fantasy team logo to have a Brewers hat on and everything because I thought I willed that team to win. And it's heavily, the irony is not lost on me that, of course, as I'm watching the Mets get shit on in the one game they need to win, I'm looking at the score and I see Brewers 4, Cincinnati 2. And I'm watching the game on my phone while Juan Soto pops out with runners in scoring position. And I'm seeing the Brewers slam the door on the Reds. And it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that if they had won and the Reds won, would I still be angry at this team? Yes, of course I would. They should have won 90 games easily. But at least then you would have known that they ended the season on a good note and they won the games that they had to win in that little time frame. And the bare minimum was that they took care of business for those 2 days, and they couldn't even do that.
Yeah. Yeah, very few. I rarely if ever watched Mets games. I did watch the end of the game yesterday because I had to watch Keith Hernandez's reaction after bitching up a fit about how the Phillies were overrated, and then watch him. I mean, actually, he probably doesn't care all that much. He'll be on a flight to Cancun tomorrow. Um, but it was a nice little first full circle moment for that. Um, as a fan of baseball, I feel your pain. As a fan of the Phillies, I enjoy it. So, um, I am I am curious though, because I think, and I know there's logistics that get in the way of things like this. I think when something happens like this, and I'm going to say this, if the Phillies get swept out of the NLDS by the Dodgers or Reds, whoever it is, like I think that this warrants a massive, massive personnel change in the team. So I'm curious how far you want them to go with cleaning house, as much as is logistically possible, like dealing with the contracts that they have in place.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give my opinion, and I'm also gonna work in what David said in regards to that. David Stearns obviously reiterated he wants Carlos Mendoza back. I've touched on it a little bit. He pisses me off. He's really pissed me off, but um, I still think he's a good manager. At the end of the day, so he will be on the hot seat, but he will be on this team next year. He did not say the same about anybody else on the coaching staff. And with the exception of Hefner, who I think has done a really good job of what he's been given over the last couple of years. He's one of the better, if not one of the best pitching coaches in the MLB, and I stand by that. The first base coach, Richardson, he has been incredible. His impact leading Juan Soto would not have gotten almost 40 steals without that first base coach. He is incredible at what he does. The fact that I take notice of the job a first base coach is doing um, speaks for itself. He needs to come back. Um, Everyone else needs to go. Barnes needs to go. Eric Chavez needs to go. People were calling for the heads in the middle of the season, and I think the only reason why they're still here and they haven't been fired yet is because Stearns has a track record of not jettisoning um, coaches in the middle of the season, or like not managers, I suppose. I don't know if he's ever fired a manager, but he definitely hasn't fired like hitting coaches. They're going to be gone. I'm quite sure of that. Thank God. Eric Chavez is a little piece of shit too. I don't know if you've seen his social media stuff. He likes to talk. He likes to talk back to fans. He's an asshole. Players. It is really difficult for me to advocate for roster moves knowing that there's no feasibility of them happening. With the biggest example of that being Brandon Nimmo, for example, who I think is a guy that Mets fans, there would be more of a call to see some turnover with him, as great as he's been for the franchise and as beloved as he is by the franchise. He's an example of a guy where in a vacuum, snap your fingers, he's gone, you want him gone. I think most people would say it's time to switch it up because he had a career year in RBIs. I mentioned this to somebody else the other day. I think he ended with, if he didn't end with 90, he was damn close to it. I know he has at least 88. That's probably the most empty 88 RBI season I've ever seen. You would think you see 88 RBIs and you assume, oh, he's an elite run drive, like he drives and runs at an elite clip. I swear I've never seen it happen. I think he drove in 15 in a week when he drove in 9 that one game. So for knowing that he's not going to get moved, I will try not to spend too much time on him. But the point of what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of turnover that I would hope would happen, that I wish could happen, but ultimately will not happen. That said, there's plenty of guys that could potentially get moved, and I want to see gone. As I said, Jeff McNeil, you've been great. You're one of the better second basemen in New York Mets history, which is really sad when I think about it. You are lifeless. I kind of have had a dislike for you ever since the little crybaby strikeout thing that you've developed in the last couple seasons. And we have plenty of young infielders. So you get the boot. Goodbye. Starling Marte will not be back. He had a good season, but he's old and is exclusively a DH because anytime you put him in right field, you are terrified that he's going to tear something. So he's gone. Pitching staff. Helsley should be gone. He can't pitch in New York. Even though he had a better end of the season, I don't want him. They should do whatever it takes to bring Edwin Diaz back, which I can't believe I'm saying because there was a point probably before this season where I would have said Edwin Diaz has a claim to being a top 3 closer in Mets history, and that infuriates me because knowing how his tenure has gone with the ups and downs, there's no way I would have ever said gun to my head that he's an elite closer for the Mets history. And he promptly went out and was probably the pound for pound, the most consistent player on this team through 162. So blank check, whatever he wants. He hasn't even opted out yet, but I assume he will. If he's smart, he will. They need to bring him back because he's the only part of this team that can consistently get it done anymore. Pete Alonso, I've already spoken. He needs to come back. You can't replace that production. I guess if you wanted to replace him with Kyle Tucker and putting Juan Soto at first, or you sign Kyle Schwarber, which isn't going to happen, you could theoretically replace him, but it doesn't make sense to. I don't know why you would. He's done nothing but hit since he's come up. A bad season for him is 35 home runs. So I don't know why you would ever get rid of that. I'm trying to think of guys that are on the fence. Lindor's not getting traded. Soto's not getting traded. Francisco Alvarez is frustrating at times, but he's shown you enough promise where I still have faith in him as the backstop of the future. There's a glut of infielders, whether that is comprised of Beatty, Mauricio, Vientos, Acuna. One of them got to go. To me, Beatty is the mainstay. He has earned the third base job. He has hit way better ever since the All-Star break, and his glove at third is incredible. He's one of the most underrated third basemen in baseball. He makes some really tough plays look effortless. I said this at the trade deadline, I would have dealt Mauricio when he was hitting tanks at Oracle Park into the McCovey Cove. Everyone else saw that and was like, "Oh my God, he's Alfonso Soriano." And I saw that, and knowing prior that he always had those tools. It's not like he didn't have crazy 80 grade power. Like his first hit as a Met was a 116 mile an hour double. But he doesn't have a spot on his team. His best spot is third base, which Brett Beatty is proven he's better at. And Mauricio, we don't have time for him to figure out the whole swing and miss thing. I saw him this series. He played every game this series, I feel like. He definitely played Saturday and Sunday. And the amount of curveballs that were 6 inches in the dirt that this guy took a golf swing on drove me nuts. And he still has a lot of potential, but he's got to go. You got to trade him for whether that be a stable setup man, because we're going to lose a lot of bullpen guys, whether that be if it's a package for a established frontline starter, which I hope they bring in. If that's the one thing that David Stearns does differently this offseason, go get me a established 1 or 2. I really hope it's a 1, but at bare minimum, get me a 2, because this rotation is clearly not consistent. They weren't productive at all. Senga's a question mark. Peterson's a question. The whole rotation is question marks, except for this poor kid, Nolan McLean, who is all of a sudden expected to be Matt Harvey. So they need to go out and get somebody who is no questions asked, pencil his name in game 1 or game 2. That's what I want. And if Mauricio and Acuna and Vientos, any one of those guys, they can all go. I'm not very high on Acuna. He seems like he will never hit. And Vientos, as I love Vientos on a personal level, very endearing. Like, this guy I bought a jersey after seeing like 50 games from this guy last year. But if you got to do what you got to do, and I would rather the Mets win a championship than the Mets do what they did this year and have Mark Vientos play for 15 years. So all of that is a long way to say that there should be some major shakeup from compared to what they did from the 2024 to 2025, where they mostly ran it back. There should be a lot of new faces next year. You're going to see Jet Williams come up. You're going to see Carson Bench come up. You're going to see full seasons of the three rookies that came up in the rotation, which is all well and good, but they need to go out and they need to get some guys because clearly the core that we have here isn't enough. So rather than break it up, they're gonna have to add to it.
Yeah, I would. I think I would agree. Um, you know, I'm not an avid watcher every day, so I don't. I did not watch the ups and downs of some of the guys, but you can't have a team that comes anything arguably close to running it back after this. Um, there's got to be some guys are going to get traded. I did see on the post game yesterday that I don't know, probably about half the bullpen is free agents, and I would bet most of them are going to be gone, with the
Yeah.
exception of perhaps Diaz, or we'll see how that goes. Um, unless you have anything else, would you like to want to transition to a general playoff discussion now that we know seeding and we'll have wild card games tomorrow?
Yeah, I've had about enough of this team, so I'll come back to them when we do our offseason shit. But with that said, we can progress into our playoff preview. So we now know the seeding, as you said. Playoffs will start tomorrow with my new hometown, Cleveland Guardians, hosting the Detroit Tigers at 1 p.m. I believe the matchup is going to be Tarek Skubal versus Gavin Williams, which is a rematch of the game I was last at, where Tarek Skubal nearly killed David Fry with a 100-mile-an-hour fastball to the head. That will then be followed by, let me see the times. That will be followed by 3 p.m. You're going to see the San Diego Padres head over to Wrigley Field to take on the Chicago Cubs. Then we have our 6 p.m. game where we have the historic rivalry of the Boston Red Sox taking on the New York Yankees at Yankee Stadium, and ending our night with the Los Angeles Dodgers hosting the infamous now Cincinnati Reds.
I'm gonna come in for a second because I got to beef with Yankee fans now too.
Awful.
I've heard so much crap from Yankees fans bitching up a fit about uh the how the playoff format has done them wrong because they finished with the same amount of wins as the Blue Jays, but they now have to play in the wild card series. You know what any rational person who is not a Yankees fan response is to that? Win one more game. You could say that about any seeding ever. Like that could have been the difference between you that could be the difference between getting the playoffs and getting not in the playoffs. Nobody I didn't hear any Mets fans complaining about the playoff format. And shout out Chris Tall, who was on this podcast, was one of the ones complaining about it. Win the season series against your division rival or win one more game, and this is no longer a problem. And
I
also, the American League was not that good this year. So the fact that the number one seed has 91 wins is kind of pathetic.
I vividly remember because this is at the time where the both the Mets and the Yankees were in free fall before the Yankees actually like started winning games for the normal team. They were at Toronto, and the Yankees had a comfortable lead in first place at the time, and they went to Rogers Center, and I'm pretty sure they got swept. There was a whole thing. I don't know if you remember this with the Blue Jays broadcast bringing out brooms, and Michael Kay was pissed about it. Um,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah.
And see, look where that got them. They had won one of those games.
Yep. That's what I'm.
They 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 won a division.
So to that's and like there's so many things about the playoff format, like and people just constantly bitch, and it's always the teams that are looking for excuses. And I think we talked about this on the last episode, did we not? That like everyone always has a bone to pick when things don't go their way.
Yeah, someone's complaining about the bye disadvantaging them because they have time off. The Yankees fans are not complaining that they have to play in this series.
Yeah.
Win one more game. You have the guy that you claim is now, is our modern day Babe Ruth, Roger Maris, fucking Mickey Mantle combined. Win one more game.
It's as
That's
simple
I
as
don't
that.
understand. It's I I don't get it. So and I made no excuses last year when I watched the embarrassment of the National League Division Series. I did not make any excuses when in 2022 the Phillies snuck in and had to play in a wild card series. I just It's not. It does not matter. And if it matters that much to you, and there's a source of pride and in principle that like you know that teams are tied and there's such different things. First of all, that's how math works. Like the tiebreak exists for a reason. If Steinbrenner signed on to the CBA that had these tiebreakers in them, or have the team that is paid 300 plus $1 million to play win one more game against a team that for half the season I heard Yankees fans say should not even be in competition with the Yankees.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree with
I
everything.
I will obviously be watching very closely the Cincinnati and Dodgers um, um, matchup. I feel like it's just like it's in the cards now that the Dodgers are going to lose, right? Like that's just how this is going to be, right? It's
Yeah,
Cincinnati's going to sweep the series.
I listened to one of the podcasts I listened to that is done by Evan Roberts, who's on WFAN. He said that he would put his entire life savings that the even if they don't win the series, that the Reds take game one. And I'm honest, I'm pretty inclined to agree with him. Like Hunter Green on the bump, that wouldn't surprise me at all if they took, because of course they would, right? Like the Mets are gonna watch the Cincinnati Reds like go to the NLCS somehow, and because that's just gonna twist the knife deeper. But yeah, with that said, I think I wanted to do two things at least with the playoff picture. I wanted to do uh gun to head World Series prediction because I haven't even thought about this. I'm gonna look at this right now and just make my call. Um, and then I wanted to do potential upsets that we could talk about for this series. So for first, we'll do um, gun to head World Series predictions. Looking at this bracket, I have maintained that I think the Mariners are way better than anyone is thinking. Um, the Mariners have the Mariners rotation um, is fantastic. You have Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, Luis Castillo. Believe Bryce Miller is still in that rotation. I mean, that's your four. Actually, sorry, Bryce Miller won't be pitching because it'll be Brian Wu instead. And those four pitchers um, are at worst a number three starter or better. Castillo is an upper echelon three, in my opinion. I would say that Wu is a borderline 2-1, Gilbert's a 1, and Kirby's a borderline 1-2. So that right there is one of the best rotations in baseball. I would comfortably say it's a better rotation than a Wheelerless Phillies rotation, which is probably the next best. I guess you could say the Dodgers too. But they have one of the best rotations in baseball. Their lineup was filled out in the offseason with Josh Naylor, or not the offseason, in the trade deadline with Josh Naylor and Eugenio Suarez. You have Cal Raleigh, who is one of the most feared sluggers in the American League and the best offensive catcher we've ever seen. You have Julio Rodriguez, who is even despite not having great seasons as of late, is at worst a young budding star with plenty. We have not seen his best baseball yet. So all that said, I think the Mariners, um, I can see them winning the American League and going to the World Series for the first time in a very long time. And my pick for the National League, it's gonna be either the Phillies or the Dodgers. The Padres, I was pretty sold on for a long time. But then you start looking at the bottom of that lineup and you start seeing straight nobodies. I think like Bryce Johnson, they roll out there. Freddie Fermin, I think, gets like significant minutes. Like it's not good. The Cubs, if Pete Crow Armstrong was still Willie Mays, maybe, but he's not. And I'm pretty happy to announce that to the world that he's not Willie Mays. The Brewers are a good team in the regular season, and they're not a good team in the postseason. They they just don't have, and I mean, yeah, they might have been mailing it in when they were played the Reds, but they still lost a series at home to the Reds to end their season. They're a good team, but I just don't think that they have the level of experience that these Phillies and Dodgers cores have. And the Dodgers strike me as a team that kind of can afford to mail it in September, knowing they're going to be in the playoffs anyway. They've been here long enough that they can turn it on when they know that it's for real, which I wish I could say about the Mets. So that leaves me between those two teams, and I hate both of these teams. Um, I think this is probably, and I know you're interested as fuck to see where I'm going with this.
I'm
As
interested because you know where I'm going to go with it.
Yeah, um, I think this is probably the year that the Phillies go to the World Series.
The second
They
year, but yes.
now well, like it's their turn. Um, Christopher Sanchez, Ranger Suarez, even if you can even get a semblance of the Nola we saw in his last start, like
Don't forget about
that's
Luzardo, man. Jesus Luzardo has had a season.
that's true. Luzardo, I mean those. Sorry, the Ranger, Sanchez, Luzardo are penciled in. I assume Nola will be the four,
Yeah,
because
probably.
he's earned that. Um, he's really the X factor in my opinion. But that rotation is definitely not anything to scoff at. And the lineup is full of guys who it's the same lineup you've seen every year. These guys know what it takes. They're back against all odds, and they want to win. And they're going to have the most of their games at home. They're going to have home field advantage when they play the Dodgers.
They're going to have home
And
field advantage against everybody but the Brewers. And from the
right,
American League, too. The Brewers are the only team that would have home field advantage over them. So it does not matter who they play in the American League. And the Brewers would have to win for them to not have home field advantage in the NLCS.
yeah. So as much as it pains me, the Phillies are probably the team that is best equipped to get to the World Series. Um, Now from there, I mean, God, I hate this episode so much. The Phillies should beat the Mariners. They should beat the Mariners.
The Phillies
Um,
should beat the Mariners because they smacked the Mariners in the regular season. And it was not even close. The Phillies got two of the three best Mariners pitchers, and they won 12-7, 6-4, and 11-2. It was not even it was not even a well played series. And the game that they let up 7 runs, and I think 5 of them were after. I think Luzardo started that game after he came out of the game. So the starters took care of that lineup, and the Phillies took care of the Mariners starting staff. I have avoided as much as I could, and you might disagree with me, being a homer and being certain on the Philadelphia Phillies being good. They have lost the season series to two, maybe three of the teams that are in this playoff bracket right now. I have no doubts that they can handle anybody. Actually, I was most worried about the Mets coming in because for some stupid reason, the Phillies have it in their head that they can't beat the New York Mets. So had the Mets made it in and beaten the Dodgers, the Mets were probably going to the NLCS again. They were oddly the biggest threat, and yet they were 14. They were like 14 games behind the Phillies. So I agree with you. I think Seattle's probably going from the American League. I see an outside chance that Toronto just keeps rolling. I don't know, maybe. I hope not, because I think Seattle would be. I think that's a good story for baseball, and it's somebody different. I don't know. I think that's good. And Homer, whatever. I don't care. Phillies from the National League. I think I think whether it's I don't worry a ton about the Dodgers because they just played the Dodgers not that long ago and they had a pretty good series. Um, and historically, actually, over the last couple of years, the Phillies have handled the Dodgers pretty well. Um, I don't know their exact record over the last 5 years. I'm looking that up now, but especially at home, um, they've done they've done pretty well. So in the regular season, the Phillies are 17 and 14 against the Dodgers in the last 5 years. At home, they're 9-6. So I feel pretty good about and this is me assuming that the division series matchup will be that. Um, unless, seen it happen, unless for some reason the Reds decide to sweep out the Dodgers and get super hot and go on a run, because baseball's funny like that. Um, yeah, I think Mariners Phillies in the World Series. And I think I'll take Phillies in six. That's my official pick. I do
I
think if they play the Dodgers in the divisional series, it's going all 5 games.
I think so. So that's the real NLCS in my opinion because I really uh you will never be able to convince me that the Brewers are a deep postseason contender until they do it. I have they even gone to an NLCS like
I
in
don't know.
their a matter of fact, have the Brewers gone to the NLCS in the last 10 years? 2018, where they lost to the Dodgers. So, it wasn't even like when they play the big teams, they can't get it done.
Yeah,
And that lineup doesn't scare me either. Like William Contreras he's been dealing with a broken pinky, I think, for like the entire season. Um, and Chorio he's hasn't played in a postseason yet, and the rotation is meh. You're relying on Quinn Priester to go out. You think Quinn Priester is going to go to Citizens Bank Park and throw 8 scoreless? Like,
that's what I was gonna say. I mean, I know, yeah, this is me being a homer again. I think a lot of these guys are not, in a um so they play in the NLCS. Yeah, they play the first 2 games at home. If the Phillies split that and the Brewers then come into Philadelphia for 3 straight games, I have a hard time seeing how it doesn't end up similar to what happened with the Padres in 2022.
yeah, I
I
just don't.
think I don't know. I don't see it happening, and I could be
Yeah,
wrong. And I'm sure this will be on our social media page, and I'm going to look like an idiot. But you know, last year made me a little bit more nervous. I was a little cocky, but I was just objectively not nearly as certain. I think if they don't win it this year, they're not going to. This bracket heavily favors the Phillies, and if they don't do it this year, then I expect half the team to be gone as well, including Rob Thompson.
yeah, I think he's definitely. This is definitely the Phillies have largely kept the same team for a couple years, and I would expect this to be like their last hurrah of sorts, especially as they transition to the Painter, Aiden Miller, Justin Crawford era.
Hmm.
Um, last before we end it for this episode, some hot takes predictions for how this bracket is going to shake out. Um, I wouldn't be, and you can say this because I'm a Mets fan. I feel pretty good about the Boston Red Sox chances to knocking the
Yeah, me
Yankees
too.
out. I think the Red Sox they there's just always something to be said about a team going into a nut when as particularly for a rivalry as heated as this one. And I think the Yankees are, and this is, I fully expect Aaron Judge to have a great series because, especially after last World Series, he's going to be a man on a mission. But the rest of that team, I think they're just going to get punched in the mouth. And the Red Sox strike me as a team. The Red Sox, Yankees, I'm seeing parallels between Marlins, Mets here, where a team that is clearly inferior on paper and on record just has it out for the other team and they don't give a shit what happens after as long as they go down together. I fully expect the Red Sox to go in with the biggest chip on their shoulder. And like I like Roman Anthony coming in to Yankee Stadium. He strikes me as a kid, and I could be wrong, and we're gonna see if I'm wrong really soon. He strikes me as a kid that if he goes to the Yankee Stadium with 40,000 people jeering at him and booing at him, he's going to smile at them, stick up the finger, and hit a bomb. Like, that's the type
Yeah,
of spirit that I'm getting from this team. They're not scared of the Yankees. I can tell you
no,
that.
and I
Um,
don't think they're playing with house money feels wrong, but it gets my point across.
they got nothing to
Do you
lose.
know how bad it's gonna look if the Red Sox come in and hand it to the Yankees? If the Yankees win, it's Yankees had a massive payroll. They tied for the division. This should have happened anyway. The Dodgers come in and hand it to the Yankees. Forget about it. It is. And every single player wearing the stupid pinstripes in the Bronx know that, and that gets in guys' heads all the time. Well, let alone what team it is, and one of the one of, if not the most historic rivalry in baseball. I'm fully on board with that.
It's going to be fun. I was really hoping for that series to come to fruition, so I'm pretty
I'm
pumped
excited.
up. I'm pretty
And
pumped up to see that.
Chris will be out here this week. So if it goes to 3 games, he'll be here on Thursday. So
Oh, you will?
I will get to watch that demise, hopefully.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It'll
Um,
be beautiful. I have a Philly specific hot take, and this isn't necessarily a huge hot take, although it is for people who follow um baseball enough to know some of the other teams. Nick Castellanos is not going to start one NLDS game. On the record now, he will not be in the starting lineup. Um,
so yeah, before you continue, so I don't, obviously you don't watch the Mets that much, I don't watch the Phillies that much. I did see something along the lines of like something in September where Nick Castellanos had a huge game, um, like propelled the Phillies to victory that day. And every question he got asked post game was not about his day, but it was about his playing time and his drop off and playing time. So I was hoping you could shed some light on that a little bit.
So the games leading up before that, he had not started in like the previous 4 or 5 games, and a couple of them were against left-handed pitchers. And being a right-handed hitter who's getting paid $20 million at a starting spot, there's not a more glaring example of your manager does not have faith in you than sitting you in that situation. Um, I think some of the questions he got, and I like the Phillies broadcast team for the most part, but Scott Franzke and Ruben Amaro. Um, I don't know. It was a poor time to ask those questions, I think, and I think that was part of how he is. I mean, anybody who's watched Nick Castellanos since he's been in the league knows that he doesn't take crap about questions. He's a weird guy, and he'll tell you what he's thinking. So I think part of his responses to that were just like, seriously, I just won the game, and this is what you're going to ask me about. But I think also part of it is he kind of being a baby about the fact that he's not playing all that much. And I from a human perspective, I get it because all the not everybody in baseball. A lot of guys take pride in the fact that they play every day. Nick Castellanos played every day last year. They want to be out on the field, and significantly losing your playing time to starting twice a week, maybe 3 times a week if you're lucky, is really bad. So I understand where he's coming from, but I think they were talking on the broadcast the other day. I think he said he was hitting like 200 since July 1st. So, and Harrison Bader has come in and lit up the team since he joined the team at the end of July, and Max Kepler's played a little bit better too. So I think you just got to go. I think he's just got to go with what's working at a time. And I think that, Thompson's a pretty even keel guy. He had Castellanos multiple times has called out Thompson in interviews and stuff. And, you know, I think that if Thompson is on the fence because all the numbers are even between, let's say, Castellanos and Kepler starting against, you know, I'm going to throw out Blake Snell because that's the only lefty that the Dodgers are going to have that's starting and the best chance that he would have to play. If for somehow they're even, and I don't know the splits, if everything is totally even and Thompson has to go with somewhat of a gut feeling, he's not going to pick the guy that has called him out to every single media outlet in Philadelphia. I can tell you that much. So I don't think he's going to start.
Yeah, he's 100% like very streaky, and it does seem that his level of play has tapered off in recent years. I do vividly remember him being one of the only Phillies bats to hit the Mets last year, but obviously, last year's Mets are not this year's Mets, and last year Nick Castellanos is not this year Nick Castellanos. So with that said, I wouldn't be too surprised either. And short, is this his last year? Is this last year
No, he's
where
got another one, but
he's
he's
got
out the door.
another one?
He's
Yeah.
out the door. They're gonna eat a ton of that contract to get him out because Thompson and whether Thompson comes back or not, whether the Phillies win or not, whatever. I think Dombrowski's had it up with him too, and I think some of the guys on the team are starting to get tired of it too. Like that's just that you don't want bad vibes like that. Um, around the team. Like I think most of the guys are, I think most baseball players are like that too. But I think, a lot of the Phillies guys give good interviews. They talk about the camaraderie in the clubhouse and things like that. And every time Nick Castellanos gets asked a question, he's calling out Thompson and complaining about the communication and the manager and XYZ. So he's gone no matter what. Whether Thompson stays or not, I'd be fine with the Phillies eating 15 of the $20 million left on that contract next year to get him out of the door. So I think he's gone either way.
Only time will tell, but hopefully, for your sake, he can come in and when his name's called, he can actually do something. Because I can tell you right now, to make a deep run, it's going to take every man on that 26, and unless they leave him off the playoff roster entirely, which I guess I doubt that'll happen.
They don't
But
have anybody. If they had anybody even close to being able to replace him, I think we'd actually be talking about that.
yeah.
But their next best option is Johan Rojas, and as much as I hate Nick Castellanos this year, he's a better hitter than Johan Rojas. So I don't think that's an option this year. I think if they had, you know had they brought up Justin Crawford a bunch this year and he had been lighting it up after the trade deadline, we might be having a different conversation, but they did not. So Castellanos is their best option for a fourth outfielder right now, I think.
Well, I think that just about covers it for this episode of Chin Music, a Baseball podcast. By the time we film the next episode, because the season is or the series will be over by Thursday, so I would fully anticipate by the time we are speaking to you next, these games will have been sorted. Um, it's going to be really fun. I've said even though it's disappointing the Mets aren't in it, this is one of the better years in my opinion for playoff baseball. I even like Cubs, Padres wild card. Like even though I don't think they're juggernauts by any stretch of the word, it's going to be a great series. The Guardians Tigers, which came down to the last day, is going to be a great series. Hopefully I'll get to go out to a game. I'm thinking about going tomorrow if the prices aren't too bad. But that's going to be a great series. Yankees Red Sox going to be a great series. And when these teams advance, like there will be an ALDS AL East matchup, which is
Yeah.
going to be really cool. So with that said, that's going to do it for today. Once again, we are your hosts, Andrew Menson, Andrew Lucuski. This is Chin Music, a baseball podcast, and we will see you guys in the next episode.
Just